through really only a couple of you. Miss Beth spoke a little bit one night also. I'm going to ask, and if you don't want to, you don't have to. Okay, Brother Donnie and Sister Pam, would y'all be willing to speak any? You haven't been here, right? On our Wednesday night service?
Speak any about what?
Okay.
I've heard the Leroy story, though. They got me beat one day.
This is the questions that I had put on our Group Me app. I don't know if you got a chance to see them or not, but basically just telling about your childhood, what it was like, what your daily life was like, any stories from your childhood that you really remember well, and like I told everybody else, it can be a story about you, or it can be a story about somebody in your family that you really liked. You know, maybe it's been passed down for years, anything like that. And if you want to talk about, either one of you want to talk about how you met, and the circumstances that surrounded that, pretty much, I think that's one of the things everybody's kind of enjoyed listening to. And so anyway, we've got about 25 or 30 minutes to do this tonight, and so if y'all want to, okay, you don't mind doing that?
I don't know.
Okay, what I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to record it. It's not going on Facebook. This is not live or anything, but we are recording this every night. Okay, just for our own personal preferences. And Brooklyn, come here. All right, test it. All right, it's on. Take that back with the Donnie and Sister Pam. And we'll go from them to Gary and Elaine to Roger and Jeannie. I don't expect to get to all of those tonight. So, and I know Roger's got about 15 stories saved up that he's ready to roll.
That story or two.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Well, I was raised down a road in the Queen called Dogtown Road, if that tells you anything about my life. But
Dog Pound or Dog Town?
Dogtown Road.
I've heard of that, but I don't know where it's at.
It's where the high school is. You just keep going.
Oh, okay.
I didn't have any running water. There were 7 of us. We lived in a 4-room shack. And so I was I was 11 years old when we moved to Horatio. So we were, thought we were well blessed because we had indoor plumbing and running water. And we had 8 rooms. And so, but a year after we moved there, then my dad was killed. So things kind of went backwards for a while. But I've had a good life. I was saved after we moved to Horatio during Vacation Bible School. I was baptized there in the First Baptist Church at Horatio. Pilgrim Rest wouldn't accept that, so I had to be dunked again by Pilgrim Rest. But anyway, because they don't think Southern Baptist churches are, what's the word, scriptural. And so, and they don't have the authority to baptize. So I had a hard time with that. I struggled with that because it was real to me. And I always tell them, they've apologized to me since, and that bothers me more than them asking me to be baptized, because I didn't do it for them. I did it because that's the only way I could join the church.
Yeah.
And I wanted my family raised in church. And that was about my life.
When I was 5 months old, an event happened in Lodi that changed and altered the lives of our whole family. My grandpa White was snake bit about 3 mountains north of where we live. He and his brother and nephew and another friend, and he died as a result of it. And that is probably the paramount story in my life, because it changed a lot of things. Mom and Dad, soon thereafter, moved to Fort Worth, Texas, a little suburb called White Settlement. There was an airplane plant building B-36s, And Dad got a job and kept the job. He was very good at it. And we lived there. Several people from this area went there. Herman and Sybil Kennedy, some of y'all, the Dorothy's uncle. Y'all remember Gary Kennedy? Gary's parents. That whole family was there in White Settlement. Mama's sister, her family were there. There were some others. Some stayed a long time, some of them a short time. We started out living in a trailer park. And the trailer we lived in was about the size of just an average camper. And, but it was real close to the plant where Dad worked. And long story short, Dad also went to school at nights and got TV repair. He repaired TVs and radios. So when I was about 11 years old, we moved back to Arkansas. It was quite a contrast for me. I was kind of the opposite of what Pam. We started out with indoor plumbing, kind of. In the trailer park, there was one kind of community bathroom. But anyway, we lived in several houses when we were there, and they all had bathrooms in nice places. I had friends in neighborhoods that we played together, rode bicycles, played baseball, little dirt, what we call it, sand lot, baseball. I was on baseball league, in baseball leagues, playing Pee Wee and Little League. And in my class, and we were a suburb, but my class would be one of 5 or 6 classes. And so there were kids every year new to me. You kind of changed as time went by. But we would have bomb drills because Carswell Air Force Base was also in that community. And that was during the time of the Sputnik scare. I went to school starting in 1956. And the parents would come, line up, and you'd get in the cars. There was a plan to get in the cars so that you could drive out of town in case Carswell was bombed. And that was a big deal, kind of for us to talk about all those things. We moved back in 1961 here. Uncle Oscar was instrumental in helping Dad and Mom kind of get started in the chicken business. And because he had gotten it, and we wound up with a few old cows, and we went from modern conveniences to now there were times we didn't have a restroom. And we were building that chicken house. Uncle Booker Graves, y'all remember Booker? Booker was building it along with Leon, that's his son, and some other local guys. And I would go up there and get the scrap lumber, which was rough sawn 4x4s and 2x4s and whatnot. And I built a portable toilet as an 11-year-old kid. I could not drive a nail very well. I had never driven a nail. And you can only imagine trying to drive a nail through somewhat seasoned oak. And so I would borrow Booker's tools, I guess. And I sawed a little hole, put four little 4x4s at the corners, and put a couple of boards across that, and I took a saw and cut a hole out in it. And I was the only one that ever remembered using that. But I was so proud of it. But then we started living in my grandmother's house while they were building Mom's house, the pink house where she lived up until a few months ago. And it had a toilet in the barn. so we could go down there. And we had a well, you had to draw water from the well. Never had done that before. When we'd visit our neighbors, Chris, the Whites, my mother's a White, I'm half white, if that makes any sense to you. Jim, actually, Jim and I are related, we are. But anyway, I get lost in that. What was it? Where was I going?
Just going to the toilet.
Oh yeah, we would visit Jess and the Jess White, that was my dad, my grandpa's brother. Chris White, Chris and Eder. Eder is a sister to Ivanor, and she was married to Chris White, which is my dad's nephew, my grandpa's nephew. But anyway, I was just amazed. You go to their house and you sit on the porch, and you get somebody, 2 or 3 get in the swing, and the rest of us sit around, and then they all dip in snuff, or most of them, even the women.
Yeah.
And even some of them with my grandma Tweedle, Grandma Tweedle was my grandpa White's widow. She always had a black gum.
Yeah.
That she would chew on and twirl it and make that snuff do something magical. I'm not sure why. But we would sit there and they would go out into the garden and get a watermelon, bring it to the porch and split it, and we would eat it, And but the thing that amazed me was there was a dipper hanging on a nail there on the front porch, and there was a bucket of fresh water, and anybody and everybody drank out of that dipper. Yeah. And when you go back to the thought of everybody's dipping snuff, and you could get pretty high as a kid drinking after some of those people. I'm teasing you. But anyway, life changed drastically for me from modern conveniences to we just didn't have anything hardly. And finally got the house built and we moved into that, and things moved along a little better after that. How Pam and I got together, we'll jump forward a long way. My brother married a girl from Horatio. Her name was Linda. And they were living in the Queen in a mobile home park. And I had hired on with the asphalt crew out of Murfreesboro. I can't remember the name of it, but it was working. We were paving Highway 71 from DeQueen to Grannis, to the county line, somewhere wherever that's at in there. And we were putting in 12, 14-hour days, sun up till sundown. And we finally, several of us boys from Kirby area were doing that, and then some of the men were working there on that as well. And anyway, Larry, my brother, 3 years older than me, and Linda decided she would find me a date. And so I agreed to it, and so a few days later, she had us playing tennis over at the DeQueen High School, there where the admin building is now. The tennis court doesn't exist. Of course, most things in our early life do not exist anymore. They've either been torn down or built over or whatever. Yeah. So we had a tennis match, and Pam and I guess Pam and I were on the same team. Yeah. First of all, let me say, neither of us knew how to play tennis. But Larry did and Linda did. So we were struggling there, and we may have said a couple of words to each other, during the tennis match. I'm not sure. And we don't remember much about that. We didn't really spark a romance or anything. We just.
I'll add that I was only asked out on Wednesday nights because that was boat night at the theater where a carload could get in for $1.
Well, I must,
Jim, why aren't
Yeah.
you?
I must confess, that's true. And, one night we were sitting there and a boy from, a young man I knew from Kirby, Alan Pete, walked up to my window and said, well, Donnie, how are you doing? What are you doing over this way? And I told him, and I said, I said,
And
what's
we
your,
dated a year and a half then.
I said, what's your name? She said, Pam. I said, is Pam? I just, I don't know how that happens, but I lose a name just quick as it can be. But we, kept dating during the summer in college. I was in college. I was, playing basketball at, Southern Arkansas down at Magnolia. So get back on track to go to college. Well, Pam she's 4 years younger than me. So I kind of robbed the cradle there on that deal.
Just a little.
And, we just, I don't know, it just kept working out and, how long did we date? 2.5 years or so. 2.5 years later, she says I never proposed to her. And I probably didn't, I don't know. I don't remember it for sure. We just decided to get married.
It's kind of what it's yelling at you.
Yeah, and I had gone to, I quit playing ball and I went to University of Arkansas, Fayetteville. And that was one thing that prompted us to get married, is I was 4 or 5 hours away.
Yeah.
We were kind of sweethearts and liked each other a lot. And we went and got married, and the Lord's blessed us. Y'all can probably ask questions, and we'll try our best. But the reason we moved back to Lodi, we lived in Fayetteville a year, my senior year, and her senior year at Fayetteville High School. And my dad had a heart attack in around October, maybe November, and survived the heart attack. And my brother was, it was at the height of Vietnam War, and a lot of my buddies were getting drafted into the Army and whatnot and going overseas. Randy being one of those, Randy, Dorothy's brother.
Yeah.
My brother Larry he went through ROTC at the University of Arkansas, and he was a navigator in B-52s. They were flying bombing missions over Vietnam, out of Guam. And my sister Kathy, 2 years younger than me, she wanted to go to the university, and Larry had graduated the university, so Dad said, Donnie, if you're not gonna play ball, you need to go with your sister. So I went to the university. Kathy was a freshman when Dad had his heart attack, and anyway, I graduated somewhere along there. And Dad said, I can get you a job down here at Kirby, teaching school. Daddy was driving a bus, and I guess he was arm twisting somebody down there. But anyway, I got it. Larry decided, Donnie, it's you that needs to come back home, because I can't. I'm all over the world. And so I got the job teaching science and math at Kirby. And Pam came, of course, with me, and she worked for Allied Telephone as a operator. And one thing I'm proud about Pam is in 1992, Alan graduated high school, and Pam graduated college. She had, I think she made 2 B's and the rest A's as a mother, wife, chicken grower.
Yeah.
She went through 4 years of her and Marcia Haggard.
Mm-hmm.
Mike and Marcia Haggard. Marcia and Pam were good buddies. They went 4 years together, and anyway, Pam came out and started teaching school and she, pretty well tagged along with me wherever I needed to go. And, from Kirby, we went to Bismarck, from Bismarck to Blevins to Derrick's to Costco River, and then home. And, she's always been willing to do whatever I needed her to do. Most of those times I was trying to pastor Old Union. I started as my first church 36 years ago. And, I surrendered to preach when I was 36. And, I'm 72 now. And we've traveled this path from Little Rock to Locksburg for off and on for 36 years, and
That's a long time.
we just wore out, I think, and
Yeah.
but the Lord's been good to me and good to Pam. And, Lord, we've had 3 wonderful kids.
Even Lori?
Even I got tickled the other day when Cammie was talking about to Roger about being in her poem, something about the tomboy. That was Lori. Lori was, Alan was special. Alan had a lot of, Alan was very smart, and he has skill that, far beyond anything I could ever do. But, Lori, she was, I used, for example, and I guess I should have seen that, I had a cow prolapse. I won't go into detail on that, but most of you know what that means. And I was trying to get it all back together, and Lori said, "Can I do that?" And I said, "Well, sure, yeah, give it a try." And she did. And she, I could see that Lori spent years in the ER at St. Joe, and I guess if you're in that position, you're gonna see a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And that helped her to, go into what she's doing now.
Yeah.
I don't think she backs away from anything.
She always cut up chickens too.
Yeah, she'd dissect chickens.
Yeah.
At the chicken. Our kids were raised in the chicken house.
Yeah.
I mean, not really, we had a house too, but, they were willing to, they worked. They got dirty just like we did, and always willing to do that. And I look back on it, our kids didn't get to go to a lot of things that a lot of other kids did because we had work to do.
Yeah.
And we were, we just had it and we did it. And of course, Dad died, 4 years, I guess, after I moved home. And I've been kind of helping Mom since 1976 by myself, pretty well. Kathy died. Mom's hard to live with. She's hard to deal with, and I should get, I ought to get something for that. There ought to be something out there for a guy like me. But anyway, Pam learned to cook as a 12-year-old because there were 5 kids at home. And Pam's mom had not ever worked out much at all, if any. She had to go to work for a 40-hour job after her dad died.
Yeah.
And that community at Horatio helped them tremendously. And if you know where Easy Mart is in Horatio, right across the street there, that 2-story house, that's where it all happened. And anyway, Pam raised her children, her sisters, brothers, helped raise them, I guess, as much as anybody. And so today, when you eat something that Pam has cooked, she's been working on it quite a while. She's been perfecting it for a long time.
Yeah.
She started out with pinto beans and cornbread, I think. And her oldest brother, Dale, said, "I'm tired of eating cornbread and beans. Find another way to something else you can cook." So she started, I think, doing mac and cheese. She's progressed quite a bit to do that. I don't like it going on all day.
All right.
You kind of get the idea.
When you lived in Texas, when y'all lived at White Settlement, what did you do for like fun, entertainment? What was y'all, what did,
Well, my favorite place to live, which was probably in the years that I can remember best, there were at least, the families that lived around us all had children about the same age.
well,
There's a mixed match. And we played together. We go to each other's house. We just did stupid stuff, really. Riding bicycles.
yeah.
Of course, it was an advantage there. They paved the streets while we lived there. And paved streets are really nice for bicycle riding. Daddy bought a ski boat. He and his buddies at work had them, so he got one. So we would go to the lake and ski and things like that. I learned to ski there. We all did. Baseball was big for me. I was on a team, well, 3 or 4 teams as I grew up there. And church, I want to say something about church there. We went to first, Mom would dress us up and take us to First Baptist Church there in White Settlement. And it was a huge church, big church. And she'd drop us off. We'd go to Sunday school. And then at the end of Sunday school, Mom would be parked in the parking lot. We'd go get back in the car and go home. And Bible school, that was a big deal. Bible school, they always have really good Bible schools. But I enjoyed church, but we did not worship as a family.
Yeah.
Dad was working 2 jobs, and we had to be really quiet. We couldn't play in the house. As a matter of fact, we couldn't be in the house unless there was a reason to be.
Yeah.
I mean, unless it was winter time. We had to be outside, finding something else to do. One thing, we had no money. Mom and Dad might have had money, but us kids didn't have anything. They didn't share. We weren't on what do you call that? Allowance? We didn't know what that word was. But on the way home, my sister and I had to walk to school there, the last place we lived. It was about half a mile, I guess. We would live too close for the bus to pick us up. And on the way home in the evenings, I would scour the ditches for a Coke bottle. I could get like 2 or 3 cents for a Coke bottle. And if I could find one, I'd go by the little store close to where we lived there and cash it in. And fortunate for me, there was a baseball card bubble gum. It was about the same price. You get a little square bubble gum and some baseball cards, maybe 1 or 2. And I was just, I thought I was on cloud 9 if I could find a Coke bottle to cash it in and buy some bubble gum and a baseball card.
Yeah.
I know I had some good baseball cards, but when I was in college, my mom gave them away.
I don't know what happened to mine either, so.
I don't know. Now let me tell this, Roger, Jeannie had 3 stacks of love letters out there. And Pam would write me and I'd write her, and my mom got into my stash. And Mom read them and quoted from them. And I couldn't handle that very well, so I took all of mine and I put them out. I went outside and burned them. And that's sad because I did it just to keep Mama from reading.
Yeah.
But Mama was always in my business.
Yeah.
And Larry's and Kathy's as well. There's nothing happened that she wasn't. I mean, it's like a bloodhound. She could sniff out anything. And you didn't give Mama nothing. And after she had worked us over, the next words were, "You wait till your daddy gets home."
Oh, yeah.
And then, that was really rough.
Yeah.
It was really rough. I know Daddy, I said earlier, Daddy worked in the airplane plant. He had a big long belt with a buckle, looked like one of these, cowboy buckles, but it had a B-36 on it.
Oh, yeah.
I remember I could describe that B-36 in detail. The only time I ever saw the belt was when it was lashing at me. Dad, Larry and I fought a lot. Larry would tease me, and I was redheaded, and I'd lied into him, knowing I couldn't beat him. But I tried to hurt him any way I possibly could. I was the dirtiest fighter you could think of. But then Mama would, here come Mom, and then here come Daddy, and they take care of it.
Oh, yeah.
But
You make any questions?
Maybe two questions, one for Pam. Can you relate your fishing story at the pond?
Oh. Well, when Mom had to go to work, Mom was always a big fisherman. Well, she was till she died. In fact, she was having one heart attack after the other when she died, and she'd say, "Don't knock my bucket of fish over, I've got to get those clean, y'all." She thought she was fishing. But, I don't know how many of you know where Pond Creek bottoms are, but, there was a good fishing hole down there, and so after Mother come, I'd always have supper ready when she got off work, and we'd go fishing after supper. So we went fishing, and she was on one end, and I was kind of across from her, and she reared back and threw her bait, and it didn't go anywhere, and she was yanking on it, and I said, "Mom, please quit, you've got your bait in my back." She said, "You kids just pester me all the time. I'm just trying to relax and fish, and just shut up that line and fish." I said, "No," and she just kept pulling it and yanking it, and I said, "Mama, it's in my back. You've got to stop." So it was a big old wooden lure. I don't know what she was trying to catch, but it had a treble hook on the back, and she had just buried it in my back. So finally my brother said, "Mama, it's in her back." So she quit fishing long enough to look, and she said, "Well, now we've got to go to the hospital." So I couldn't sit down in the seat because I had this big old piece of wood sticking out of the back. So I had to turn around backwards and face backwards, but we went to the Queen and they cut it out. And
Roger's got another question, no different.
okay.
I'd like, if Donnie knows the answer to this, a clarification on the rattlesnake bite. I've heard that tale all my life, different ways. That your grandpa got bit and a snake killed him, and I heard that they got him, a doctor to come out there and he lanced it and he bled to death. So which way was it? Did the snake bite kill him, or did the doctor kill him?
Truth be known, I guess what actually caused his heart to give out is loss of blood. It bit him somewhere on the shin. Larry, my brother, is 3 years older than me, and he remembers the day. I was, of course, just an infant. I couldn't. But there were 3 mountains over looking for honey. My grandpa's brother, Jess, who was old enough to be his to be his dad, could somehow course bees, honeybees. And he was the lead, and they were going through there, and Grandpa stepped over a log, and he stepped almost on the snake. It was a huge snake, and it bit him on the shin. Larry says it was up on the thigh, but I don't know, but it was. Anyway, 2 of the guys walked out to get help, and one guy walked out to get help, Molly Vaught. And Jess and Chris kind of made a ladder with their arms, and Grandpa sat on that, and they carried him out down Jack Holler and Brooks Holler, and we're trying to come out over there where Gene Coward lives. And so they got there with the help as far as a truck up, I don't know where we're at, somewhere around in Brooks Holler. Got him to home, and they started lancing, somewhere along the line they lanced it.
Dr. Johnson.
Dr. John, Jones, the old Dr. Jones in Glenwood, everybody's familiar, what was his, W.J. Jones?
Yeah, he was named Doctor me.
He was young then, you know, and he came this way. They got word to him, and he came, and he had some antivenom that was old, and they couldn't get it to dissolve. And they kept working with it, and he finally gave him a shot of that, and told him to put hot
towels, and then they ran out of towels, and they used quilts.
Yeah.
They dipped quilts in hot water.
Yeah.
And he told me to keep that packed to draw that blood out, so they did, and he just bled all
They-
night.
Yeah, Mom tells of an entire quilt soaked with his blood from that wound. So they decided somewhere during the night that he was not, it wasn't gonna work. And I've heard different stories, cause I rely on Mama to tell me these stories, but they took off in a pickup. Back then, if you had a vehicle, it was a pickup. And my daddy was in the back with Grandpa, and they headed out to St. Joseph's. And when they went over Lake Hamilton Bridge, my grandpa told my dad, he said, Harmon, we waited too late. And they got to the emergency room, and about 30 minutes after that, he died. It's likely that the venom had bled out. It's likely. Because in Grandpa, I don't remember any tales about him having heart, chest pains or anything like that, because isn't that what venom does? I'm not sure. But he was of a sound mind, and he didn't complain of heart, chest pain or anything. It's just he felt the energy, I guess, leaving, and he knew it was short. Grandpa, from all tales, was a great man, and I've lived with that.
I'd like to hear Pam's version of the time that Donnie seen a UFO. Guess you can remember.
I do remember, we built our chicken houses, and we had our equipment up, but the catchers hadn't got there, so we just sat down on the feed bin. And then on high top, a light started flashing.
We were long.
No, we were not, we were ours. I'm telling this. Anyway, this light kept flashing, and I thought, it looks like it's flashing dust, but how can anybody see us? How can they know?
This is 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Anyway, it was Bobby coon hunting. And I told Donnie, I said, it's got to be a UFO. There's no.
Yeah, it shined right at us.
And I think Donnie might have flashed a light back, and I was like, how can they see each other? I know that's so far away. But apparently he could see us.
I think I'm gonna cheat out that light, that shine. Did Donnie go wake up your mom and tell her to get up on
Well, that's been, you talking a long time ago. All right, we gotta move on. Appreciate that very much. Brooklyn, you go get
I'm
that.
sorry to get the pastor's mind.
No, we're not gonna apologize. We like it.
Yeah.
We like it.